Welcome back for this week's episode of Jori Sports Stories. As always, I'm your host Jori, and today we got a lot to talk about. We got the NBA Finals breakdown, NFL drama, and various shenanigans, and we catch up on WNBA action and more. And on this week's edition of Jori's Timeout session, we have a few conversations about things such as diva-ism in sports and clout-chasing individuals and more. So without further ado, tune in, turn your volume up, and let's get it. As always, we're starting this week off in the NBA. We finally get to crown an NBA championship. An NBA champion, the Denver Nuggets. Congratulations to the Nuggets and all of their fans. But while we can celebrate and congratulate the Nuggets, we're also going to talk a little bit about the Heat and a little bit more about other people as well. So, without much more, and we got a lot to discuss in this segment, let's get it, and let's tune in. First thing we're going to address in the NBA Finals, one, congratulations to Denver for winning the championship. We're going to address Miami, what's next, and more. So the biggest question that I know a lot of people have to ask is, what happened in the series? Well, here's a handful. Here's my take on what happened in Miami. The playoff magic wore off. They reverted back to regular season, poor shooting. Jimmy Butler, as much as I could rag on him, he was tired and eventually started to conserve his effort, especially in Game 5. The magic that they had from the Celtics series quickly ran out. They were overmatched size-wise. They couldn't really deal with Jokic. They didn't attack the rim very well, even though Denver's rim defense is not up to par with the rest of them. But we'll get on Denver in a second, because their defense actually surprised me this offseason, on how well they were able to play. So, that being said, they didn't attack the rim very well. They didn't shoot well at all this series. When you have role players like Max Strus and Caleb Martin and the rest of them combining for 2 points in a quarter against a team that you're undersized with going against, there's a big old talent gap going against, you can't have that happening. So, yeah. Playoff Jimmy couldn't do it by himself, and Bam somewhat showed up. But it wasn't enough due to the bad matchup. They didn't have Tyler Hero, and Max Strus and Caleb Martin for 2 whole games just did cardio in the first half. Like I said, it's pretty self-explanatory, but what does this series prove? In my eyes, some people may disagree, and I can agree to disagree. Bam Adebayo is not a consistent number 2 option. He's more of a 2.5 to 3rd option. I feel like if Miami had a better point guard situation going on, this wouldn't have happened. This wouldn't have happened. Miami needs a point guard who will defend. Jimmy needs another star besides him. Him and Bam have proven a few times that they can't do it by themselves. Miami needs to get another star. Like I said, Miami needs to get another star like a Bradley Beal, a Dame Lillard, a point guard, a true point guard who's not afraid to play defense. They also need to look at some true bigs as well, because the size gap, Lord. And on to the Nuggets. So, once you call the run that these Nuggets recently just went on, just ended a few days ago, you could call it historical. This was such a historical run that these two went on, especially Jokic. You can't ignore that they both had a 30-point triple-double in the same game. The way that they managed to feed off one another and get others involved in the same type of predicament was quite special to see. And you can also kind of take it there. They might have put the league on notice with this playoff performance, because Miami couldn't do anything with Jokic. Barely. They could barely handle They were too small. Again, this was just a bad matchup for the Heat. But not to take away anything from Denver. Denver also was playing very well. They weren't shooting very well either, but they shot enough, and they made enough of them. And they went on runs. Like, the thing with Denver, like, this whole series that I got to watch, excuse me, this whole series that I got to watch, when Denver, like, you noticed that Miami was always playing catch-up for the most part, correct? And Denver were going on these 8 to 15 point scoring sprees, and it would leave Miami reeling. And it was demoralizing. So when you can turn it on at any other, if you can really just turn it on at the drop of a dime and be up 20 points, yeah, you put the league on notice. And before it will, let me think. Putting Jokic and Murray aside, the other pieces, like Bruce Brown, Aaron Gordon, Michael Porter Jr., who also needs to work on his shot and his confidence in this offseason, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Christian Brown, they all stepped up with tenacity. And they each played their roles to pretty much the highest level. They dominated the paint, and they made enough shots to wear out Miami. It's different when you have, like, okay, the way I like to break things down is like, okay, if you're playing a basketball game and you know this team has two really good players, well, my first kind of like idea would be not let those two beat them, make everybody else beat them. But when everybody else destroys the paint, can make shots, do make their shots, some of them, because they didn't shoot necessarily too well. Denver didn't necessarily shoot too well either. I didn't see video game shooting that much. They went to work. Ball movement, spacing. They had Miami struggling. This was a complete dominant team run from the start of the playoffs to the finish. Literally, they lost like 5 games in this playoff run. They only lost once at home, I believe, and that was to Miami. It's not a stretch to say that Denver could rattle off one or two more of these. It's not a stretch, especially if they could keep that core together and some of those bench players together. Even though I know, yes, teams change every year. If they could keep Bruce Brown on a veteran minimum, and even though his performance in Game 5 really just made me mad, it really kind of just upset me because Game 5, they were shooting so many bricks, you were thinking both teams were trying to build a house. But the difference was eventually Denver's shot started falling and Miami kept bricking it up. Brick, 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 brick. I'm like, oh my God, make a shot. But minus the bad shooting in Game 5. This was a very much deserved win for the Nuggets. This was a deserved ring for the Nuggets. Mike Malone has every right possible to go toot everybody else's horn and his own. He has every right. From watching Mike Malone's conferences and the things he says to his team, yeah, he very well believes that they can do this more than one time. And I believe they can do it more than one time. Let that man toot his horn. I might not agree with the Lakers' daddy comments, but when you look at the scope and the perspective of those comments about being the Lakers' daddy and whatnot, he was drunk at the parade. And all while his team was dominating the playoffs, everybody was talking about LeBron and the Lakers. So that you can understand why he said that. But regardless, moving on. More NBA headlines. Ja Morant was finally handed down that 25-game suspension for conduct detrimental to the league. I knew it was going to be 25 games. and it makes him ineligible for any awards. Also, I read something, and I listened to a video. I forgot what video it was, but it has something to do with his contract. Ja might not be eligible for a Supermax or Max. Is it Max, Supermax? One of them he's not eligible for at this moment. So, bottom line, in all honesty, I hope he uses this time to actually take things serious, make a serious concerted effort to address the issue. Now, if the issue is that you don't know how to cope with stress, you need to find some healthy coping mechanisms, because playing with guns isn't. And doing self-destructive behaviors is not coping. You're making it worse. It might feel good in the moment, but what you're really doing is you're really just self-destructing. You're self-sabotaging. So I want, personally, I want Ja to stop self-sabotaging and go seek some help. If it's something in the mental, go seek some help. Because you already done lost dang near $50-something million because of self-sabotage. Find something productive to do to occupy your mind. If it's not basketball, do something else other than run around listening to Young Boy bobbing around with a gun in your hand. No. Find something productive to do. I mean, not productive, but less dangerous. I mean, productive too, but get you some business. People who are actually busy don't have time to run around bobbing their head to the Young Boy pulling out stuff out his pocket. People who are busy, who have business, I know your business is in like the off season. Your business is like in October, September, August. That's when it starts. But find something else to do. Find a hobby. Find yourself. I feel like Ja needs to find Ja. Because the stardom went to his head. I feel like a lot of people, these young kids, a lot of this stardom went to his head. We're going to talk about Zion in just a minute. But find something to occupy your mind that just makes you feel free and that you can be yourself. I feel like Ja is having an identity crisis. I feel like Ja is lost. He needs to go find himself. Center yourself. Go get some help. Because the reason why I say that like that is because the next time, like, he needs to correct this behavior at the root. There's no amount of, I'm just not going to. This is something that needs to be corrected at the root. Correct? So, because the next time, there might not be a next time. And I know Nike said we're going to support Ja. Powerade them backed off a little bit. So, how many chances are these sponsorships going to keep giving one person? This is his wake-up point. If this ain't close to rock bottom and he don't get it at this point, I don't know what it's going to take, personally. Because like I said, next time, there might not be a next time. Next, we're going to talk about Zion and the Pelicans. Ladies and gentlemen, if anybody is listening to this that knows Zion and whatnot, tell that man to lawyer up. And tell her to cut the crap. Tell that man to lawyer up. I'm not going to start on that, but keeping it on the court, because I'm going to touch the off the court in a minute. But keeping it on the court, the relationship between Zion and the Pelicans is probably over. And it's effectively over because the rumors surrounding the Pelicans attempting to get rid of Zion, trying to trade up to get Scoot. Because they want to trade up to get Scoot. A realistic package is going to have a lot of picks plus Zion. Or some picks, and you're going to have to come up off of Zion. And I believe they want to come up off of Zion. Because here's some of the poignant details that Zion and the Pelicans don't necessarily get along. Okay. Here's some of the poignant details that kind of sets a timeline or just sets some reasons on why this isn't working. But he struggled with his weight since being in the league. And I'm not finna sit here and say that it's because he's not playing or whatnot. People who try to make excuses for Zion. No, it's because he's undisciplined and he's lackadaisical. Undisciplined and lazy. You don't like working out. You like to eat whatever you want to eat. And you wonder why you always hurt. You're always hurt because you're never healthy. Because he can't keep his weight down in check, he can't stay healthy to worth a lick. If it's an 82-game series, why is Zion only playing 30 games? He hasn't even been playing half the season for the past few years. They put a weight clause in his contract because of that. And they just dismissed Teresa Witherspoon, whom Zion actually had a really great working relationship with. Now, people were like, you're reaching a little bit. No, I'm not. When I was talking about it, I said, no, I'm not. I'm not reaching. Because with them getting rid of her, and that's being Zion's number one coach, the person who was in his corner, it just sends a message that they finna come up off of Zion. Well, that they're getting ready to come up off of him. And like I said, the rumors have been hot that Pelicans are trading up for Scoot Henderson. Ironically, it comes like a week and a half removed from the foolishness on Twitter. And before I just sit here and put the blame on Zion, there's plenty of room for blame on both ends. One, like I said, Zion and his offseason foolishness probably embarrassed the crap out of the Pelicans and exacerbated an already growing issue. These issues with Zion that I'm talking about have been going on for years. And then you had this foolishness. Homegirl tagging him every tweet, mentioning where he worked and whatnot. It exasperated an already growing issue. Plus, his lackadaisical and undisciplined nature that can't nobody seem to get up out of him keeps him from seeing valuable court time. And if they wanted to trade him, all of that right there would affect the trade. The Pelicans, they gave him too much hype and clout way too early. Which, in turn, when you give somebody who's not ready for it the reins to be the face of the franchise, you enabled and created this immature young man. They have helped create this issue. Period. Now, personally speaking, I do hope that Zion gets his crap together. Because when he's on the floor and he's healthy, he is arguably top 10 in his league. The ceiling is so high for this young man. But his motivation, his discipline is so low. You will never reach your ceiling if your motivation ain't there. If your discipline ain't there. If your dedication to playing basketball or doing whatever it is that you do in life. You will never reach the ceiling or past that if you don't get the motivation up. It could be an environment issue. It could be the relationship between Zion and New Orleans. It could be whatever. But at this moment in time, I'm starting to see that the best way for both of these, like the best thing for both parties to do is to part ways. It might not happen this year. It might happen next year. But Zion is on the clock. Whether you like to believe it or not. That man is on the clock. Next, we got to address Mr. Karl Anthony Towns. Lord. There is a fine line between confidence and flat-out delusion. So, Karl Anthony Towns went on, it was Patrick Beverley podcast, and said that when he's ready to hang it up and he feels like people will say that he changed the game. How can you change a game when half the time you don't even show up? Huh? Exactly how have you changed the game? There are plenty of big men that can shoot. But unlike you, there's also actual game changers who aren't scared of the paint. He's very talented. Yes, he's talented. A game changer? No. He think he a big old guard. No. He's a big man that can shoot, but when it comes to he plays small in the paint, and I don't like that. You too big for doing that, Carl. And you think that people gonna think that you changed the game. With what? Your questionable fashion choices? With what? I mean, Jesus Christ, at this point, the way you fail to show up, more people might know you because of your girlfriend than anything. Be real with yourself, Carl. Now, do I believe if Karl Anthony Towns was put in the right situation, he could be a game changer? Yes. Right now, no. Right now, he's just a big old big who could turn around and shoot, and sometimes he make it, sometimes he don't. But when it comes to paint play, he disappears. For the most part. Be real with yourself, Carl. You are that guy, but in the way that you're talking, you're not that guy. And next, and probably last on my NBA docket this week, we got Dame Lillard and the whole Portland thing. Look, because I'm so sick and tired of Dame Lillard saying, embedding messages in his words and saying that he wants to win a championship, but you don't want to leave Portland. 9 times out of 10, Portland and Damian Lillard will not win an NBA championship together. But they also have no interest in rebuilding and offloading Dame, and they haven't been serious about building a team around him. So what do you really want to do? But like I said, Dame would be, like I said earlier, Dame would be a great fit in Miami, LA, just about anywhere else that actually has the talent that meshes together, that aren't mostly unproven babies. Like, Portland is, for the most part, a very young team that is unproven. I don't know what they are. I don't know half the roster. And you think you're going to win with that? No. And if Portland doesn't want to move Dame and he don't want to go anywhere else, then so be it. But the yearly foolishness that both sides put us through every year has got to stop. Like these little embedded messages, these little cryptic tweets about winning a championship. Dame, you're very smart. Damian Lillard is a very smart man, right? You know that Portland is not the biggest free agent attraction point. It's not. You're not going to get any quality free agents. Because what is there in Portland other than you? I understand that you are that team, but you're not attracting free agents for the most part. So, the whole Dame Lillard and Portland thing, I will believe anything. I'm not believing him. I'm not believing anything that the Blazers are saying, even though they're saying that they're not moving off of Dame. Well, he needs to stop this foolishness every year, like I said. We've been going through this for the past few years about Dame winning a championship. There's so many places for him to go to actually win a championship that he wants to stay in Portland. So if that's something that he wants to do, so be it. But we don't want to hear about this every year. Period. Because at some point it gets redundant. Sorry. Next up on the docket, we're discussing the WNBA. We'll be discussing what's going on with certain teams such as the Lynx, Storm, and Sky, and more. Plus, you'll hear my thoughts on the whole Brittany Griner situation. We have the segment pretty much in wraps. So stay tuned for what's up next. All right. So now for the WNBA. And one thing I've seen a lot on Twitter, Aaliyah Boston, Miss Ma'am, go on with your bad self. Because I am seriously becoming an Aaliyah Boston stan. And here's a few reasons. She's dominant. The Fever actually might need to start running that offense through her a little bit more. As a rookie, the way she comes up the floor to find her spot and how easy she makes it look with how physical she is. She's great from the free throw line. And she's such a force in the paint. Rebounding is a second nature for her. I feel like she's going to be a great one in this league for a while. Indiana needs to get better pieces around her, period. Or find ways to get her the ball. And I'll get on the Fever about that in just a second. But next, we're going to talk about the Minnesota Lynx, who are 3-7. However, they have been shooting better as of late. They've improved about minimizing those turnovers, and they're doing a lot better with rebounding. Now, there are some times that I see that I do watch the Lynx. I do get to catch the Lynx play, and they still need to be more physical. But they're doing a lot better than what they were. Defesia Collier is back to true form on the offensive and defensive end. Minnesota could turn it around this season, but at the same time, the conference that they're in with the WNBA, they might have already lost too many games for that. In all honesty. And then we're going to talk about the Seattle Storm, who are clearly rebuilding after Breanna Stewart thing. Jewel Lloyd being the whole team is not going to work. Defensively, I just, earlier this morning, I sat and watched some of their highlights. Defensively, Seattle needs to do some work. They got some things to improve on. They need to shoot well consistently and stop leaving the paint that open. Their rebounding needs to improve. Their defense, I don't know what it is. Is it bad spacing, or is it that the fact that they just get out physical? But good ball movement kills them. If good ball movement, and I saw a few things. I saw in the video. I was watching the highlights of the Storm, and they left the middle of the paint wide open. I'm like, this is a problem. So you lose Breanna Stewart, and you lose a big old presence in the middle of the floor. And they haven't found a way to replace that. Kia Nurse is a good shooter. That's all. That's pretty much all that she's good for. I don't know who is in charge of this over on the Storm, but I want them to understand, if you guys play good defense, the offense will follow. In basketball, ball movement kills them. Drives to the paint kills them. They're pretty decent when it comes to traps and perimeter defense, but the meat and potatoes getting into the paint, they need to stop leaving that paint wide open like that. That's how they get killed by 20-something points right then and there. So the Seattle Storm, they do need some work. Next, I want to talk about is the Aces, even though I shouldn't be talking about them. They should be the championship favorites. They have their blips every once in a while. But for me, seeing what the Aces are capable of doing, one way to try to slow them down, and it's like the Mercury, or is it the Mercury? The Sun, Connecticut Sun. Yeah, one of those. One of them orange teams, correct? Had a little bit of success against the Aces. And they didn't let Las Vegas get into a rhythm very well. One way to kind of slow down the Aces and get them to be a little bit more inconsistent and look a little bit more beatable is to get them out of rhythm. If they can't move the ball that well and they can't just create space, and Aja Wilson can't create space, Chelsea Gray can't get going, it's another thing to ask Candace Parker to stop throwing the ball to her teammates. If they can't stop that, if you can't get them out of rhythm, you're going to be in trouble. Once again, Candace Parker is doing what she was brought there to do. I don't know why people like to harp on Candace Parker like she a bum. She is not. Her nickname is CP3 for a reason. Aja Wilson should be, is it Aja or Aja? Whatever one. Should be an MVP consideration. Aaliyah Boston should as well. But the one thing that I love about watching this team is, like I said, the only valuable reason that you could beat this team is you outshoot them or you get them out of rhythm. They're very hard to stop. They have phenomenal movement, and when you have multiple players that can create space and opportunities, as well as Aja Wilson, who can score, and you know what Candace Parker can do, and Chelsea Gray will pretty much put that team on her back. Yes, this team should be championship favorites, and yes, I like to watch them play. Now onto the Chicago Sky, who did lose Candace Parker. They did lose Courtney Vandersloot, and But the trio of Marina Mabride, Kalia Copper, along with a consistent Courtney Williams to facilitate, they've been playing sound basketball. And we all know that Daniel Evans is a walking bucket. She could be top 10. I think she's top 10 in this league because she's a walking bucket. Now, one thing I do know about the Sky is that they do need to improve on the defensive end when it comes to spacing and leaving the paint open once again. But like I said, a lot of these teams that they've lost to happen to be just bigger. So they do need to improve on defense, but they have the offensive pieces and keys to make something work. And now to the Fever. They're a very young team, but like I said earlier when I was talking about Aaliyah Boston, they need to let that offense run through her a little bit more. The last game they played, she had 19 points, 8 rebounds. She is a walking double-double. Put the ball in her hands. Victoria Vivens is a rebound machine that creates opportunities as well. From what I see in the Indiana Fever, they're young, they are talented, and I feel like they will get it together. But a key to them getting it together is finding Aaliyah Boston more. She can get open. She can create space. She's very physical. She creates her own opportunities and will toy with you in the paint. They need to get her the ball a little bit more. And before I end this segment, some names, like I said, I didn't have any notes on the Sparks, but I just wanted to put that out here. The Sparks, the Los Angeles Sparks, who I've been actually watching since I was a little child from time to time, I feel like the analysis on the Sparks is they can win, right? But they have older players. And their older players are not necessarily the healthiest things in the world either. And they're an average team. Now, they're just average. People ask what's going on with the Sparks. They're old and they're average. Yes, Lexi Brown can come off the bench and give you 26 to 30 points. But without that, what else do they have going for them? Not much. I feel like the Sparks might need to get a little bit younger, and I feel like they might need to get a little bit more versatile as well. But yeah. And now we turn our attention to the NFL, where we have updates on the DeAndre Hopkins sweepstakes, a whole bill of drama in Buffalo regarding Stephon Diggs, and more buzz around the league. We got a rather interesting segment for you all. So, without further ado again, let's get it. part of me wanted to start this segment off addressing Stephon Diggs and his foolishness, but no. I'm going to break down Saquon Barkley first because I feel like this is the more telling thing. And there's a certain Giants fan that keeps coming at my team. You're going to get your issue in a minute, boy. But why has this contract thing with Saquon turned kind of ugly? Well, let's break down the facts. Saquon hasn't signed his franchise tag because he wants more than the $10 million, citing his role on the field and in the locker room as valid reasons why the Giants don't need to be cheap. Now, citing his role on the field and in the locker room are valid reasons. Those are very valid reasons. Because if the Giants don't have Saquon Barkley, Daniel Jones is up there, Daniel Jonesing it up over there, throwing picks and being sloppy and tripping on his own 2 feet. If they don't have Saquon Barkley, the Giants look way worse than what they actually do. So I understand his feelings on that. He made this team, if you look at it from his perspective. But if you look at it from the Giants' perspective, he's also been hurt as well. But Saquon is one of those types that he's taking you as far. Well, give me a second. Let me revisit that. Saquon is the Giants. It's not Daniel Jones. Because they don't have a very proven wide receiver group. I'm not finna sit here and call the Giants wide receivers and disrespect them, call them nobodies like certain people like to do. They're unproven. So, with Daniel Jones being an average quarterback, a group of unproven receivers, and Sterling Shepard staying hurt, yes, Saquon Barkley put the team on his back, and he deserves to be compensated handsomely for it. But another thing is the devaluation of the running back is rampant. I blame Ezekiel Elliott for that. But yet the league is going towards more of a passing league, but you still need a good quality running back. Preferably, because of the direction that the league is going into, one that can catch out the backfield. And then the Giants put a $14 million a year contract back on the table. So I feel like that is right there just saying, here, we gave you something. We gave you more than $10 million, and here it is. But in all honesty, I don't want to be the one to break it to this man, but Ezekiel Elliott not living up to his contract, he kind of messed it up for everybody. Because ever since when he got paid, his production went down. And I'm not saying that it's going to happen to Saquon, but I'm saying that they're going to be hesitant to pay Saquon because of Ezekiel Elliott's foolishness and his inability to stay healthy and his inability to get anything over 2 yards after he got paid. That's the reason why the running back position is being devalued, partially because of Zeke. And another question we could ask about this is are the Giants culpable in this kind of ugly turn of events? Well, kind of, sort of, yes. But July 17th is the date to remember. That usually marks prep for the new season. Training camps usually start around July. Mind you, they say they got a lot of time. July 17th. It's June 16th. They don't have as much time as they think they have. So, unless they've been working on this since February. But that's plenty of time for them to get a reasonable offer, but it's not a lot. It's not a lot of time because I know the way that time runs. When something is not on your mind, it comes up quick. Like today, the water bill. I had to pay a water bill. And I completely forgot about it. And then I looked at I looked at how much it was. I'm like, oh, it was due yesterday. Time runs like that. So if I'm the Giants, I'm trying to make Saquon Barkley happy, but at the same time, not break the bank. But that's not the question. The question are the Giants culpable in turning ugly? Which, yeah, because they signed both Dexter Lawrence and Daniel Jones already. Which, in my situation, if I were Saquon, I honestly would feel some type of way. Because if there's no Saquon, they're not paying Daniel Jones. Saquon being Saquon made Daniel Jones that much better and less turnover prone and clumsy. So yes, they're culpable in this being kind of ugly. One, you had an offer that he didn't particularly like like that. It was too low for him. Two, you tried to slap him with the franchise tag and he wasn't going for it because it was lower than the contract that you offered him. Three, you signed somebody who arguably y'all wouldn't have signed had it not been for him before him. So yeah, they are culpable in this. This is pretty much their fault. And I already knew what it was going to be once they signed Daniel Jones. I'm like, Saquon's not going to be happy. He's not going to take that franchise tag. They're going to have to figure something out. Bottom line, I feel like they'll get this done, but the Giants are remedial if they don't get this done because he means too much. And Ezekiel Elliott really just ruined the running back market for just about everyone else. Now we're going to talk about Dalvin Cook, the Minnesota Vikings, and more. So I think this is just for Dalvin Cook. Dalvin Cook was actually released by the Vikings. Jesus Christ, I can't talk today. But he was released by the Vikings, and I feel like some of the best fits for him include Dallas. They just got rid of Zeke. And I feel like they'll get more production if they want to go out in the free agency and get another running back behind Tony Pollard. They'll get more production from Dalvin Cook. I feel like the Rams could need another running back. Cam Akers ain't it. I don't know. He's not it. Cam Akers is not it. He do entirely too much complaining and diva-ing and throwing hissy fits and not enough on the field. Cam Akers ain't it. Dalvin Cook, if the Rams, I don't think they can do it because I don't think they have cap space. But he could be on the Rams if they can make it happen. Miami can make Dalvin Cook happen. They can use the enhanced running back room. Denver. That's a good place. You're behind Russell Wilson, trying to make Russell Wilson's life a little bit easier. Then they just lose a running back with an ACL. I could be wrong. I'll look that up. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. But Denver's a good spot for Dalvin. Somewhere where the pressure won't nearly be on him in Denver than it will be on Russell Wilson in Denver. But bottom line is he wants to find a home, finding the right fit. He's not in a rush, but he got a month. Y'all got him and DeAndre Hopkins got a month to find somewhere to play by training camp. And if you really think about it, that's not a lot of time. Stephon Diggs. Lord. And the Bills. I think I got a lot to say about this. So, my big thing, the bottom line about this whole situation with Stephon Diggs and the Bills is he needs to grow up and stop being infantile. So what literally happened? Monday, he went in, did a physical, had some conversations with the head coach, quarterback, and others, and left before practice. Sean McDermott is on the record saying Steph isn't here, everybody else is, and that he's very concerned. Thing number 2. Number 3, Von Miller and Josh Allen tried to kind of put the fire out, but they made it worse inadvertently, and that wasn't their intent. This is what happens when you put your teammates in bad situations, and you're being a bad teammate because you're being a brat. Another thing that happens, he goes on this quite childish, cryptic Instagram, Twitter thing, insinuating somebody's lying. The next day he shows up to practice, his absence was excused, and the issue is resolved. Is it really resolved? Do y'all think we was born last night? I'm so sick and tired of people trying to play the general public like we're stupid. Do y'all think we were born last night? No. What happened is y'all got in his head and he started thinking, he was like, maybe I should show up. He's still not happy. I don't think he's that happy. He can post everything that he want to post. You don't walk out of work and storm off like that for no reason. And to say that the reason was excused and the issue was resolved, do I look like I got stupid written across my forehead? And sorry about that, but no. So, ladies and gentlemen, Stefon Diggs, everybody. We know he's kind of dramatic and he behaves in a very childish kind of manner. He's been showing diva-ism for a few years. Just small flashes like last year's impassioned poor behavior. And if you remember, he tweeted his way out of Minnesota. That man has been coddled and given what he wants. And it's on you that who traded for him, knowing that there's always a fat chance of him being disgruntled. Now, the way I think about it, because he's not happy, the pressure of winning more and getting ahead of where you were, because they've always been stopped at the have they been to an AFC championship game? Or at a divisional? So it puts the pressure more on the whole team and the coach on getting past the divisional round. Plus the pressure of tiptoeing and teetering around Stefon Diggs. That's going to start to build. So whatever the issue is, it actually needs to be resolved instead of using the word resolve as a poor excuse of a lie to sweep things under a rug. I do know this. The Bills team don't elevate this year. The clock is ticking for a number of people. Period. I don't know what's with this executive dysfunction in the Bills, but it's one thing, and Von Miller was saying it's not that serious. Well, it is that serious when your star wide receiver decides to storm out of out of a mandatory OTA or something like that, mandatory minicamp. It is a big deal because, keyword, mandatory. You're not supposed to storm out. I would like for Stefon Diggs to stop acting like a brat. And it's like, and I'm saying the word brat because I'm not going to say the word I actually want to use. And now he's on Instagram acting like everything's all right. I'm not stupid. I know everything ain't all right. I know there's some cracks in that foundation over there in Buffalo. And if they don't get it together, they won't be cracks. It's going to be holes. Anyway, on to the Vikings. I feel like this could be a make or break year for the Vikings as well. Like I said, as far as Kirk Cousins is concerned, you already got rid of Dalvin Cook. They got some things going on with Danielle Hunter and whatnot. You already replaced your defensive coordinator because last year that defense was absolutely Swiss cheese. They gave up a whole bunch of yardage, acreage at that, i.e. But the bottom line for the Vikings, and it's like the Vikings are a decent team. With Dalvin Cook, they had a decent running back situation. I don't know what they're going to do now, but they released Dalvin Cook because Dalvin Cook also has a history of not being able to stay healthy. So they got rid of him for that. But if they had a decent running game and you have Justin Jefferson, if they don't move on from Kirk Cousins, they are going to waste a prime Justin Jefferson. And I don't know if Justin Jefferson has that diva in him like the rest of these wide receivers do. If he do, it could go sideways. And they're going to have to get him up out of there. So I feel like the Minnesota Vikings, they need to get rid of Kirk Cousins. I'm not saying do that this year. Maybe next year. But that man is a professional thief. He been stealing money for a minute. It's time to move on from Kirk Cousins. Minnesota. Because look, I'm not even trying to back up Stephon Diggs and his foolishness. But when they extended Cousins, right, in Minnesota, and Stephon Diggs was still there, he tweeted himself out of Minnesota the exact same day. Now, that could be a indictment on Stephon, or that can be an indictment on Minnesota. But we also did get to see the Minnesota Vikings get absolutely destroyed by Dallas, 40-3. Kirk Cousins is hot. Kirk Cousins is cold. Period. So, and it's time for them to move on from him. If they want to be successful and actually do something worth something in the playoffs. Period. And now for this week's edition of Jori's Timeout Session. And we've got things to discuss such as diva-ism in sports, how far is too far with attention-seeking idiots, and more. Plus, I'm going to need Mariah Mills to cut this embarrassing act of self-destruction out. And I'm going to need Zion to get a lawyer. You can sue for defamation. As funny as this is, you can get your point. More on that foolishness and more coming right on up on Jori's Timeout Session. Again, welcome to Jori's Timeout Session. We're going to get right into it. We're going to start with diva-ism in sports. When I talk about diva-ism, I'm talking about mainly people like point guards and wide receivers who, oh my Lord, or a Kyrie Irving and a superstar. A Kyrie Irving and a wide receiver. They always, like, I understand because they invest more into their bodies and they can't play the games that they play for a long time. But come on, man. Stephon Diggs, classic example. Who's another example of being a diva? Give me just a second, because I can pull up a whole handful. Kyrie Irving. I put him under my diva thing. Under my diva qualifications. Heck. You can put T.O. He wasn't necessarily a diva, though. He wasn't necessarily a diva. But I'm not saying people don't deserve that type of attention. I'm talking about the people who go out of their way to make it known that they're not happy and they cause all this conundrum when it comes to keeping them happy and whatnot. I'm talking about those type of people. That, Lord. Antonio Brown. Classic example of diva wide receiver. Antonio Brown, Juju, he got some in there. And it's coming out in about the Bears is that they don't necessarily care for Claypool and his work ethic. But he was complaining about music at practice in Pittsburgh. Diva behavior right there. Let's see. Like I said, T.O. T.O. was a diva. I don't even consider Ocho Cinco was a diva, but T.O. was. Brett Favre. Aaron Rodgers. Like I said, Kyrie. I'm not saying those who actually earned it. But when I'm talking about diva-ism, I'm like, can y'all, like, okay, think. Brett Favre is a diva because you know what Brett Favre was. I was alive for that. I remember, not for when he was in Atlanta, but I remember Brett Favre. I remember that. He was a Viking. I remember him being a Viking. I don't remember him being a Jet. But he acted a fool the entire time he played. T.O., a known diva. Heck, T.O. to some people don't even mean Terrell Owens. It means team obliterator. Again, LeBron James can be considered a diva as well. And Baker Mayfield. And Cam. But yeah, divas, I feel like if you're going to be in sports, knowing that you don't have to do much, well, you do have to do a lot. I'm not even going to say that. If you're an athlete, and you're a major athlete, you have a obligation and a responsibility to the general public to not act a butt. And to not be an ugly, personable person. Not to be an ugly, unpersonable person. And not to be a diva. You have an obligation to your teammates to put the best interest in your team to win and not stop all this foolishness, storming out of practice and yada, 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 getting your coaches fired and I don't like that and I want music in practice and beep, 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 beep. Give it a rest. You have an obligation to help your team win a championship, not to help your team be in an acting movie. You're a football player, not a rock star. The diva-ish behavior, and people, like, I understand if it's your personality, right? Some people are just naturally high-strung and just naturally just naggy. But keep that away from me, and please attempt to control yourself when things don't go your way. Because you make everybody else look bad. Like I said with the Stephon Diggs situation. He put his teammates in a really bad situation. Because he was being a brat. Like, I feel like just because you may feel like you're more talented than the next person in the team game, everybody has their role. You're not going to get every single ball. You're not going to be the first read every time. You're not going to be the first person I pass a basketball to. And if that's the reason why these folks are acting a fool, they need to reprioritize their priorities. Are they playing for self or are they playing for team? There's certain sports that you could play for itself, but as far as like Stephon Diggs and the Bills, that's not a self sport. That's a team sport. And it takes a team. And the diva-ish behavior has got to stop. Because that type of behavior will not stop. Rein it in a little bit. Let these people keep their personalities, but rein some of that stuff in. Because this type of behavior, and you don't have a control over it, Lord, it'll get you ran over in real life. Next thing I want to talk about is clout chasing individuals. And I didn't get to hit on the Brittany Griner situation in the WNBA segment because I kind of wanted to save it for here because it kind of has a major part in here on this topic. So as we know, Brittany Griner was confronted by a YouTuber who does YouTube-ish stuff, right? So I understand that we might view athletes in a higher position, in a higher guard. And we see them as celebrities, and we see them as stars and superstars and whatnot. But one thing I really want people to realize is that these athletes are human beings too. They have rights too. And if it would have been me, I would have knocked that goddamn dang old phone out his hand and I would have broke his jaw. If you wouldn't do it to your mama, don't do it to anybody else. And this thing with society, and if you get a soundbite you can take off, and this clout chasers, it makes this thing of I can get rich quick and go off as just a soundbite. It has made people think that they can just forget their morals and forget that other people are people too, just so they can go get some attention. No. Because this is why I can't be a celebrity or an athlete. Because I would have knocked one of y'all out. Got a phone in my face asking me about something political. Bam. The phone would have been broken. I wasn't paying for it. Like content creators, YouTubers, if you do those type of YouTube videos and stuff like that, don't disrespect people. Don't cross the line. Because what that person did, I'm not giving him a name or nothing, because I don't want to elevate his platform. What he did with Brittany Griner was crossing the line. Athletes are people too. They don't deserve to have their lines crossed, just like we don't. They're people. They bleed the same blood that we bleed. They put their clothes on the same way that we do. They are people, and they need to be treated with some decency and respect from you clout chasing idiots trying to get a like and a subscribe and a comment. Have some decency, have some decorum, and don't forget, don't lose your morals, because if you wouldn't want anybody else doing that to you, and if everything fails, put the shoe on the other foot. If it had been you, and you were in her situation, or you were in a situation that was wildly publicized, would you want anybody coming up at you after they just played a basketball game or before? No. Sometimes attention just clouds judgment. Clout clouds judgment. And I don't know who raised y'all, but I'm not going in somebody's face asking them dumb questions. And you asked a question that you already knew the answer to. So what really was the point in doing that? And the WNBA needs to do better about their security, but that's another conversation for later. I'm talking about the idiots, just like the idiot who did what he did to Brittany Griner. People just like him. This isn't about sports anymore. This is about having decency. This is called treating people with respect. Treat people how you want to be treated. Because had she treated you how she wanted to treat you, you probably would have been on the floor somewhere. I would have slapped the crap out of him with a shoe. In all honesty. Because we need to stop. We can idolize these people, right? These celebrities, these athletes and all that. But you got to be able to break it down. At the end of the day, they're human beings. They're people. They deserve common decency and respect, especially when they're on the clock and when they're trying to do their jobs. Period, point blank. And don't let you being a YouTuber and trying to get stuff for attention cloud your morals and lead you to do the wrong thing that makes you look stupid to the whole world. That's all I'm saying. Be considerate. And treat people like people and not like objects and inanimate objects. Be considerate. Period. Y'all know the drill. You know the drill. We've reached the conclusion of this week's edition of Jori Sports Stories. And as always, I'm your host, Jori, and I want to thank y'all for listening today. And if you like what you heard, Feel free to share the podcast and let's grow the audience. If you're listening to us on YouTube, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and click that bell button for more notifications. You can now catch me live on the Coffee and Sports Morning Show on Sports Empire Network on YouTube and Facebook every Wednesday morning at 9 a.m. Tune in next week for a brand new episode of Jori Sports Stories. Thanks for listening today, and I'll see y'all next week.